Everyone, I'm going to be going over the basics of HTML. HTML is the structural language that we use when we're creating websites or web pages. So it stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Now, an HTML page is made up of what we call elements, and so those are just different containers that hold different types of information. A lot of HTML elements have what we call an opening tag and a closing tag. Then you have the different types of content in the middle. So, for example, containing everything else on the page, we have the HTML element. It begins with a left angle bracket, whatever the name of the element is, in this case HTML, a right angle bracket, and that's our opening tag. We have other elements and whatever content there is in the middle, and then at the very end of the page, we have the end of the HTML, or the closing tag. So left angle bracket, /, the name of the element, HTML, right angle bracket. So our opening tag, our closing tag, and then that'll contain all sorts of things in between. Now, the HTML element always contains two things. The head element, which is containing information that the browser needs to know but doesn't physically show up on the page, and the body element, which is what we actually have for the content that will display on the page. So inside of the head element, we'll have all sorts of different things. We'll have a title for the site, and this will actually display on the tab of the website. We'll have some metadata, so sometimes you might have a description of the website or keywords that you want to pull you up in the search. A link to the style sheet to control the colors and the fonts and all of the fun design sorts of choices, and sometimes links to JavaScript. Then we have the body, and that contains what is actually visible on the page. Now, on all of the different pages for learning how to do web design, there is this Try It Yourself editor, and you can just click on that to open and close. And what I'd like you to do is add these basic elements that we're working with. So HTML at the start, end of HTML at the end, and then we're going to have the head element. Now, unfortunately, tab doesn't actually work in this editor, so you just need to use a few spaces to just create a sense of hierarchy here, so it's clear what's the parent, what's the child. Then we have the head element and the end of the head element. I like to do the opening and closing tag at the same time so that I don't forget the closing tag. And then inside of the head, we're going to have a title. It's not physically going to show up. If this was actually its own web page, this would show up in the tab. But this is actually an iframe where the code is going to be displaying, and the iframe doesn't actually change the tab at the top. After the head element, we have the body element. So the opening tag, the closing tag, and inside of the body, this is where we actually put our content. In this case, I'm just going to do the classic coding message, hello world. When you press on submit, it executes your HTML and displays it in the iframe here, just like it would display on a normal web page. I want to mention you can go in and out of the editor and your code will stay. But if you reload the page with Command R or by pressing on the refresh button, it will clear all your progress. Now, as we go through each of these pages, I'm going to have you take a screenshot showing both the code as it's executed and then the code down below. And so this is just going to be Shift Command 3 to take a screenshot of the whole screen. It'll save for you on the desktop automatically, like always.